it really isn't that far. I thought we were farther out.
That part is
Is this right in Barton?
It's outside, just outside of that. So we did. But it was, kind of very touristy. So we had gotten
Quick question. Did you know that all was valedictorian?
this is where stood up there.
Did you?
Because that was
I didn't know you had your and did your speech. Oh my gosh. Just a couple years ago. It hasn't changed much.
yeah.
That's crazy. Oh, I'm so grateful all 3 years. And all 4. Oh, it's so nice. Oh my God. When do they start?
They better shut up because I'm pressing
Uh-oh.
Bunny, he's playing Psalm 19 this morning. Close one.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
but you can't use it.
It'll be
On
so
the back
pretty when
page.
it's done.
When do you leave these?
Next Sunday.
That's what we're expecting. And you're going for 2 days?
You did.
7.
Unfortunately, I woke up too late for that.
So, Bob, are you surviving?
Tell them what you're doing. Today. Later. Can I tell them? Can I?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, cool.
And it starts
Downtown,
today.
like GRCC?
Oh, no, please.
Yeah. I'm so excited.
Do you have
Spencer's getting that.
We'll talk. We'll have to talk about that too.
will they have a final Sinfonia? Because I'd like to put that on.
I said the same. Yeah. Well, I'll get it to you when I find out. Yeah. I didn't know I was going to be here this morning. So that's nice.
Do they have 2 services or just one?
The valley.
Good morning, Johnny.
Carol.
How are you today?
Your hair looks so pretty. It's so long.
Brian Bell talked to me the other day while I was teaching. He goes, "Your hair's really long." That's kind of a weird thing to say. Like, is it a nice look? I said, your outfit's really cool. I'll try not to like be too grabby. I did bring her cookies,
Good morning, and welcome to Fountain Street Church. My name is Josh Usadell. I'm a Fountain Streeter, and I use him, he, him pronouns. I would like to welcome you today by sharing my journey to Fountain Street, or how I became part of the Fountain Street We, which you remember Reverend Christopher talked about in the past couple weeks about the Fountain Street We. So I first heard about Fountain Street as a teenager, and unfortunately it was in a negative manner. But hey, I think we've all heard a negative thing or two about Fountain Street. The people at my church said, "Oh, Fountain Street, they walked out of Christianity and they lost their faith." To which I said, "Okay, so they're not specifically Christian anymore, but they still go to church. What are they doing in there? Are they singing? Do they have a sermon? I might like to see this someday." So fast forward to my college years and my early 20s. I went on a pretty exhaustive spiritual journey. I can't list all the places I visited, but I did get prophesied over at 2 Black Pentecostal churches. I attended Buddhist and Hindu services. I went to Catholic Mass and Orthodox liturgy, and I even went to a Center for Inquiry event. So in my mid-20s, I decided to visit Fountain Street and see what it was all about. And after my first service, I stepped out of church expecting a few lightning bolts to rain down on me. But after no lightning bolts came, I decided it must be an okay church to attend. I attended a few more times, and I met with Fred and Matthew at different times. The time I met with Fred, his first question was, "Are you trying to sell me something?" And I said, "No, Fred, I'm just here for the spiritual wisdom," which he gave me. He said, "Stop ruminating and obsessing about my sins," and I carry that advice to this day. Fast forward to my 30s, and I had a couple terrible weeks in 2017. My marriage fell apart, and I got fired from a job I liked, and I had a manic episode. Despite all that, I managed to bring my 6-month-old daughter to Fountain Street Church for a service. And on that last Sunday in April, as soon as I walked in, I felt home. The spiritual journey I had been searching on pointed me to Fountain Street, and it felt so good to be home, I just started bawling. It was a bittersweet moment. I was bawling because it felt good to know that Fountain Street would be my spiritual home, but I also cried because I knew my soon-to-be ex-wife and I wouldn't be bringing the kids to Fountain Street Church together. 2 ushers noticed me crying and offered me tissues and welcomed me to Fountain Street Church and explained that it was Reverence for Life Sunday and that there were animals all over church. And I just cried. I cried more. I just cried because it was so beautiful. I gave my daughter a bottle in the social hall, and we talked to a man named Weldon, and you might remember him. After my manic episode, I got on some good meds, and I started seeing a good psychiatrist I see to this day, and I started regularly attending Fountain Street Church. I signed the big book of membership, and at a service during the summer, I heard a line from a hymn that sums up my spiritual worldview. "When we all serve each other, our heaven is begun." And so, I welcome you to Fountain Street Church. Whether you are Black, white, Latino, Asian, Native American, or something else, whether you are straight, cis, hetero, lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer, intersex, asexual, non-binary, or something else, and whether you are Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, Sikh, agnostic, or atheist, or something else, Fountain Street Church is for you. So welcome to Fountain Street Church. Let's begin the service.
I think my favorite part of that is, or something else. You can be anything you want to be, anyone you want to be here, and that also makes me feel at home. My name is Margie Peterson. I serve as the chaplain here at Fountain Street Church, and I will be reading this morning's invitation to worship, which comes to us from Amid All the Noise in Our Lives by Tim Haley. Hear these words that invite us into this time of worship with one another. Amid all the noise in our lives, we take this moment to sit in silence, to give thanks for another day, to give thanks for all those in our lives who have brought us warmth and love, to give thanks for the gift of life. We know we are on our pilgrimage here, but a brief moment in time. Let us open ourselves here, now, to the process of becoming more whole, of living more fully, of giving and forgiving more freely, of understanding more completely the meaning of our lives here on this earth. The ancient witness comes to us this morning from the book of Job. However, call on the animals to teach you. The birds who sail through the air are not afraid to tell you the truth. Engage the earth in conversation. The earth is happy to share what the earth knows. Even the fish of the sea are wise enough to explain it to you. In fact, which part of creation isn't aware? Who doesn't know the divine's hand has done this? The divine hand cradles the life of every creature on the face of the earth. Spirit's breath fills the nostrils of humans everywhere. The contemporary witness this morning comes to us from the poem, A World That Includes Frogs, by Chellan Harkin. I am so honored to be part of a world that includes frogs, croaking like maniacs from a nearby pond, for who knows what reason, though it seems for the same impulse in my chest that leads me to pray. I am so honored and dazzled to be part of a universe that includes moons at all. And who can say anything without first being incinerated by awe about that great burn pile in the sky, the sun, that provides its own fuel and brings everything to life with light? I am so grateful to be a part of a world that includes the reverence of nighttime and oceans with unplungeable depths and hearts yet deeper. I am tickled to be part of a world that I am certain is spun of living poetry and to be sewn of this same magic fabric. I'm beyond wonderment to stand still within this particular twilight while the stars appear one by one like fireflies turning on their lights. And know that anywhere I point my heart's gaze in this marvelous world holds a full cup of secret delight that makes all seeing replete with a rival. And as my knowing lays itself at the feet of amazement, what else can I do but join those frogs in their great burbling chorus of praise?
Good morning on this beautiful fall day. For those of you who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name is Jenny Makita, and my pronouns are she, her. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are on the traditional territory inhabited by the people of the Three Fires, the Ottawa, Chippewa, and Potawatomi, until 1821, when the Treaty of Chicago gave the United States control of the land south of the Grand River, and at which time these peoples were increasingly displaced, often forcibly to make room for new arrivals. We are also situated this morning in the native habitat of a number of endangered species, including the pug-nosed minnow, the short-eared owl, and the prairie vole, just to name three. Now I invite you to close your eyes, take the deepest breath you've taken all day, as we invite Spirit to inspire our sacred time together, my words, your hearing, and all of our hearts. When Reverend Christopher and I met a couple weeks ago, he shared with me Fountain Street's community vision this year of "Let Peace Begin with We," a modified lyric to a song to this day that brings tears to my eyes, "Let There Be Peace on Earth." He suggested that I share how I try in my little corner of the world to help bring peace on earth. In what can only be described as an example of Spirit showing off, I suspect he may not have realized when he invited me to join you today what an auspicious day October 2nd is. Today is World Farm Animals Day. It's celebrated each year on the birthday of Mahatma Gandhi, who believed that all beings, including other than humans, should be treated equally with respect and dignity. The day was founded in 1983 as a part of the farm animal rights movement, or FARM campaign, to raise awareness regarding the prolonged suffering and brutal slaughter of factory farm animals specifically, and to encourage all of us to work on creating a compassionate world where all animals could live in peace. The same year World Farm Animals Day was founded, I enrolled in a course entitled Contemporary Moral Issues at the University of Florida, my alma mater. My interest in the course stemmed from my passionately held belief that the death penalty was archaic and inhumane. At the time, this is back in the 80s, a little while back, Florida was still using the electric chair, a rickety wooden chair built by the prisoners themselves. Midway through the course, we were assigned readings from a book entitled Animal Liberation by the philosopher Peter Singer. I was 19 years old. I'd been raised on meat and potatoes, and more recently, Wiener Schnitzel and sauerkraut, as I was the daughter of an Air Force fighter pilot, and our family had spent prior years stationed in Germany. I had no idea at the time that the Wiener Schnitzel that I so enjoyed was actually breaded veal, that veal was a euphemism for a 6-month-old calf, and that baby calves raised for veal are stolen from their mothers within 24 hours of birth, raised in isolation, and fed an iron-deficient diet to ensure their meat remains white. I was devastated, and in particular recall feeling like I should have known. I bought my first animal protection button. I actually still have it. It says boycott veal that year. My love and advocacy of animals dates back to my earliest memory of finding a brown grocery bag full of kittens while walking to school near Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas. I headed straight to the nurse's office with that bag, assuming where else would you go with a bag of kittens, only to have her react as if I'd done something wrong, call my mom, who's here with us today, thanks Mom, and demanding she come and retrieve the kittens immediately. We bottle fed and found adoptive homes for each one of them. 14 years after the kitten incident, at age 23, and after graduating from college with a degree in economics, long story for another time, and while working at a bank in DC, I volunteered to stuff envelopes at the nonprofit responsible for the World Farm Animal Day, FARM. By the following year, I was enrolled in Notre Dame Law School, a school I chose because of its social justice emphasis. My application essay highlighted the plight of factory farm chickens, and I plan to use the legal system to protect all animals from fates such as theirs. I quoted Ralph Waldo Emerson's poem Success in the final paragraph, summarizing my hope that being a lawyer would afford me the opportunity to leave the world a bit better by a redeemed social condition, or to know even one life had breathed easier because I'd lived. My dream was to work as an animal protection lobbyist, educating legislators, as I had been, and putting an end to these cruelties within my lifetime. Don't you just love the naivety of youth? There were two problems with this ill-conceived plan I only discovered after completing my first year of law school. First, lobbyists don't need law degrees. And second, there were no animal protection lobbyists. After graduation, I did manage to find positions with two animal protection organizations in DC before returning to this area in 1994. I worked with a local law firm here, downtown Grand Rapids, and did animal law on the side. As you can imagine, it's tough to support yourself when your clients don't have money nor understand the meaning of a retainer agreement. Over time, I helped found the first ever animal law section of the State Bar of Michigan, the more politically oriented attorneys for animals. I worked with local governing bodies to eliminate gas barrel euthanasia for shelter animals. They were doing that in Ionia. Testified to protect companion animals under personal protection orders, and wrote legislation to force those charged with animal cruelty to either pay for the care of their animals pending trial or release them for adoption. The case that inspired that legislation involved primarily goats. I even managed to spend 6 months lobbying. I got to live my dream with the Michigan legislature attempting to keep mourning doves off the game species list when hunters sought to add yet another sentient being to kill for sport. After many exhausting and often disappointing years, it became clear to me the answer was not in transforming laws. Instead, the answer, as with so many social justice issues, was to transform hearts. In 2008, I enrolled in a Christian seminary, the faith in which I felt most at home, hoping to better understand how theology might support my work and learn the skills necessary to do minister-type things, primarily blessings and memorial services for animals. I even became certified to be ordained in the United Methodist Church until I chose to officiate a gay wedding, another long story for another time. The church showed me to the door and I left seminary. Not to be deterred by a religious institution, the following year, I began what I like to term as a soft opening in my life as an animal chaplain. Without any affiliation to back me up, I officiated my first ever blessing of the animals. I was hooked. I have since had the opportunity many times, including blessings in which chickens, pigs, and horses were in attendance, usually close in date to the feast day of St. Francis, the patron saint of animals, that falls 2 days from now on October 4th. I've even had the pleasure of assisting here a few times with animal blessings during the annual Reverence for Life service that Joshua mentioned earlier. In fact, I have a little invitation for you. If you're not doing anything this afternoon, I'm actually going to be down in Douglas at Berry Field with Pastor Sal from Douglas UCC, and we'll be blessing animals in that field. You and your furry, finned, and feathered friends are more than welcome to join us. If you can't, or your companions are introverted, a lot of cats don't really like these things, I recently learned you can have your animals blessed by Father John Deere, who is a very well-known peace advocate, by telephone, by simply calling toll-free 1-833-ASSISI-1. I'm not making this up. I checked it. In addition to blessings, several years ago, I began offering a companion animal loss grief support group on the second Tuesday of each month, as well as memorial services. And recently, I've even had the opportunity to walk with fellow Fountain Streeters. I see a couple of you out there this morning, during their grief journeys. If you're interested at all, and I've got little bookmarks up here, you're welcome to grab one after the service today that have the information about the group on them. Which brings me to today. I am currently enrolled in One Spirit, an interfaith, interspiritual seminary in New York City, and a related animal chaplaincy training program, hoping to be ordained in both capacities next June. When I share this with friends, I'm often asked, what is an interspiritual animal chaplain? Well, animal chaplains spiritually support all sentient beings regardless of their species or their belief systems, including not only companion animals, but those captive in human systems, factory farms, circuses, zoos, endangered habitats. Chaplains promote the human-animal bond. They, through spiritual practices, offer sacred send-offs and advocate on behalf of all beings. An interfaith, interspiritual animal chaplain is, in the words of my dear friend and mentor, Reverend Sarah Bowen, similar to being a free agent, free to pull from all belief systems, religions, wisdom traditions, spiritual ways, philosophical paths, and scientific perspectives to support each being in a way that is most helpful to them. The first area of study in this program this fall, in the first area, we're attempting to answer the question, are animals who are animated by the same divine spark that each of us is capable of, and do they have spiritual lives? Spoiler alert, I absolutely believe they do. James Herod is a researcher who offers this trans-species spirituality definition, and actually these are 5 elements of the definition that he's come up with. The first is, are they capable of reverence, awe, or intense love? Secondly, do they engage in careful observance or ritual? Are they capable of the emotions of terror, wonder, or empathy? I've borne witness to all of these elements in farm animals I've had the honor of observing and interacting with over the years. And while I could give you 58 years worth of examples, I won't do that because I'm sure everybody's getting hungry. I'll highlight just a few. The first element, reverence or intense love, is probably the most evident for anyone who shared their lives with an animal. A couple weeks ago, I visited a local farm sanctuary for a photo shoot. Bluebird Meadow Goat Yoga in Ada for anyone who's interested in expanding your yoga practice to include farm animals. And heard a beautiful interspecies love story. One of the caretakers shared with me that 2 of the animals, 2 of the newer residents, were a horse and a donkey. The horse named Greek, the donkey named Teddy. A family that was caring for the horse could no longer do so and asked my friends if they would be willing to take their horse into their pasture, take this horse into their pasture. So they brought Greek to their pasture. And upon doing that, Teddy, who still was at the other place, quit eating and refused to stand. And this went on for a period of days. And so they called and said, listen, we really need you to take Teddy as well. So my friends went, they didn't even have a trailer. They went down and got Teddy, got him to stand up, and walked with him for 2 miles back to the pasture where Greek was. When they saw one another, they ran to each other, whinnying and actually standing up on their hind legs in excitement, and have been inseparable since. In fact, while I was out there, the photographer said, let's try to get a couple pictures with Greek and Teddy, and I'm like, sure. And I mistakenly got in between the 2 of them and almost got crushed. I mean, they really are that inseparable. It was quite beautiful. In another example, dear friends of mine who live up in Pentwater invited me to chicken sit in their home for the whole month of May this year. I'd never spent any quality time with chickens. And I'd written about them years ago, and so this was my moment. The girls, as they are affectionately referred to by my friends Nancy and Jeremy, exhibit a fierce love for their babies. Over the years, I'd heard the passage from the Christian Bible in the Gospel of Matthew in which Jesus is lamenting over Jerusalem. You may remember this passage for those of you who've ever had an opportunity to explore the Christian Bible. How often have I desired to gather your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings? These words came alive for me as I bore witness to one of the hens each night as night fell, knowing to go into the coop and then gathering her 4 chicks literally under her wings for the night to tuck them in. The second element is careful observance or ritual. Studies have shown that chickens can recognize 100 different faces, human and non-human. Further, they remember positive or negative experiences associated with those faces and pass that information along to their flocks. I'd like to believe I became one of the 100 faces of the girls while I was there. I'm going back up in November, so hopefully they'll remember me. A few years ago, a veterinarian friend of mine, Dr. Holly Cheever, who maintains an abandoned and rescued farm animal sanctuary, relayed a poignant story to me to share in an article that I was writing at that time about animal grief. After the death of a mini pygmy goat named Parsley, one of the brown swift cows named Bridget refused to eat for 3 days or leave the spot where Parsley died. Until then, Dr. Cheever didn't even realize the two animals were such close companions or the level of interspecies empathic intimacy that they shared. I had the opportunity to observe the third element, terror, and feel it on my own when I was watching the girls. I was foraging for morel mushrooms. They actually had a ton of them on their property, and they're like, hey, you might want to go down by this tree, and my mom was visiting, and we ended up getting bags full of morel mushrooms, but I digress. We heard a crow shriek, followed by a hen. The hens have a pecking order that was designated as the hen that was supposed to keep watch for predators, who shrieked even louder in a vocalization that could only be described as terror. I discovered that a bald eagle, who inhabits the mile area around their coop, was in the area. The crow's cry alerted the hen, who in turn alerted the flock to take cover. The fourth element, wonder, is one of my favorites. Watching the hens express their curiosity about and wonder around shiny objects, mirrors, iPhone pictures of themselves, sparkly and colorful objects like jewelry and new food is absolutely delightful to behold. And if you don't have access to chickens but would like to see another beautiful example of farm animals and their capacity to experience wonder, Google cows and music when you get home. A girlfriend of mine up in Rockford used to stop by a local pasture on her way home from work with her violin. She'd get out of the car and begin playing in the corner of the pasture. The herd would quickly gather together in the corner by her, stand still, and listen. Studies have shown that the vibrations from the music help relax their muscles and make them feel less stressed. Sound familiar, Mandy? My little sister is here, and she's a choir director. And while cows typically respond to classical music, they also enjoy other genres, I discovered. I found a video of grazing cows in Germany congregating to hear an accordion being played with gusto. I kid you not, you must look this one up. It was lovely. One last note about wonder. Earlier in the service, you heard Shaylin Harkin's poem, A World That Includes Frogs. When I was reading things in preparation for today, I discovered there is a frog in Florida, at least I hope the little one survived last week, called an eastern narrow-mouthed toad. These toads have a croak that sounds like the bleat of a lamb. When there are more than one in the area and you close your eyes, you could swear you're listening to a flock of lambs. Aren't animals just the coolest? Finally, there are so many examples of farm animals exhibiting empathy for others. Nancy, my friend with the chickens, said when she's having a down day, the girls know that she needs extra love and affection and show it by keeping a close eye on, staying close to, and snuggling with her. In my own spiritual life, I've come to understand that God, the divine, however you experience the divine, is love, pure and simple. Could it be that animals of all kinds, simply by displaying love for another, are displaying their capacity for the demonstration and demonstration of their ability to have spiritual lives? And might it be that we just have so much more to learn? Earlier, also in the service, you heard the Spirit's words to Job from the Hebrew Bible, "Call on the animals to teach you." Namaste.
I have a few announcements. First of all, I would like to appreciate and acknowledge Ginny for coming and bringing her message to us this morning. Jonathan for being with us every Sunday this month. And Josh for doing the welcome. And of course, our amazing tech staff, which now is headed by a new person by the name of Cale Clements. So if you see somebody walking around holding a microphone or a camera and you don't recognize him, introduce yourselves. And then I have some announcements. Our young congregants are taking some time to look inward this Sunday. Some groups are doing meditation, others movement. And the high school group will work on vision boards to think about their future. The 4th through 8th graders have a special fun task. They are going to work on some props for the upcoming Hocus Pocus movie at Fountain Street on October 23rd. And the flu shot clinic in the social hall is going to go until 12:30. So if you didn't make it in there before the service, you will have an opportunity after the service. As our offering is collected today, may we keep these thoughts in mind. In gratitude for all that we have, we give generously of our bounty for the support of this community and all that it does to help the wider world. The offering will now be gratefully received. Let us quiet our hearts and minds and share our collective breath, beginning with some moments of silence. We each have our own concerns and joys, and this is a time to focus on what those are and lift them up. As we breathe the air in this beautiful place together, as we enjoy the breeze from outdoors coming through the stained glass windows, let us open ourselves even further beyond the walls of this beautiful church. Let us hold those who are with us later in the day or the week, those who are with us from afar right now watching on YouTube. And let us open ourselves to those who are not us, to all that nature is. Let us feel the vibrations and the energy of love, of God flowing through us and through all that is. We are grateful for that all that we have been given and all that we continue to receive. We look for grace in our hearts and in our lives. In the name of all that is holy, may it be so.
our nourishing time together has come to an end. As you go out into the world, may you be enchanted by and feel a renewed sense of what animals have to teach us. May your hearts be transformed. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with we. May it be so.